Welcome to Generation Link TV Get to Know. Today we are talking about Nelson Mandela. I'm Francis Okanga. Nelson Rolihlahla Madiba Mandela was one of the key African elites who emancipated for South Africa from white minority rule and served as his country's first black president. This made Mandela to become an international emblem of dignity and forbearance. He was born on 18th of July 1918 in the tiny village of Mvezo on the banks of Mbashe River in Transkei, South Africa. His mother was Nonkafi Nosekeni and his father was Nkosi Mfakanyiswa Gadla Mandela Jongatiba, who was a principal counselor to the acting king of Nsembi people. In 1930, when he was 12 years old, his father died and the young Rolihlahla became a ward of Jongitaba, the great place in Mokesweni. Hearing the elder stories of his ancestors Vela during the wars of resistance, he dreamed also of making his own contribution to the freedom and struggle of his people. Mandela attended primary school in Kyunu, where his teacher Miss Mudingane gave him the name Nelson in accordance with the custom of giving all school children Christian names. Mandela began his studies for a Bachelor of Arts degree at the University College of Fort, but did not complete the degree there as he was expelled for joining a student protest. On his return to the great place, the king was furious and said if he didn't return to Fort, he would arrange wives for him and his cousin Justice. He then ran away to Johannesburg, instead arriving there in 1941. He completed his Bachelor of Arts through the University of South Africa and went back to Fort Hare for his graduation in 1943. Meanwhile, he began studying for law at the University of the Witwatersrand. By his own admission, he was a poor student and left the university in 1952 without graduating. He only started studying again through the University of London after his imprisonment in 1962, but also did not complete that degree. In 1989, while in the last months of his imprisonment, he obtained an LLB through the University of South Africa. He graduated in absentia of a ceremony in Cape Town. Mandela, while increasingly politically involved from 1942, only joined the African National Congress in 1944 when he helped to form the ANC Youth League. In 1944, he married Walter Sisulu's cousin, Evelyn Massey, who was a nurse. They had 2 sons and 2 daughters, the first of whom died in infancy. He and his wife divorced in 1958. Mandela rose through the ranks of ANCYL, and through its efforts, the ANC adopted a more radical must-based policy, the Program of Action, in 1949. In 1952, he was chosen as the National Volunteer-in-Chief of the Defiance Campaign, with Malvi Kachelia as his deputy. This campaign of civil disobedience against 6 unjust laws was a joint program between the ANC and the South African Indian Congress. He and 19 others were charged under the Suppression of Communism Act for their part in the campaign and sentenced to 9 months of hard labor, suspended for 2 years. A 2-year diploma in law on top of his Bachelor of Arts allowed Mandela to practice law, and in August 1952, he and Oliver Tambo established South Africa's first black law firm, Mandela and Tambo. At the end of 1952, he was banned for the first time. As a restricted person, he was only permitted to watch in secret. The Freedom Charter was adopted in Kliptown on 26 June 1955. Mandela was arrested in a countrywide police swoop on 5th of December 1956, which led to the 1956 treason trial. Men and women of all races found themselves in the dock in the marathon trial that only ended when the last 28 accused, including Mandela, were acquitted on 29th March 1961. On 21st March 1960, police killed 69 unarmed people in a protest in Sharpeville against the pass laws. This led to the country's first state of emergency and the banning of the ANC and the Pan-Africanist Congress PAC on 8th of April. Mandela and his colleagues in the treason trial were among thousands detained during the state of emergency. During the trial, Mandela married a social worker, Winnie Madikizela, on 14th June 1958. They had two daughters. The couple divorced in 1966. Days before the end of the treason trial, Mandela traveled to Pietermaritzburg to speak at All in Africa conference, which resolved that he should write to Prime Minister Verwoerd requesting a national convention on non-racial constitution and to warn that should he not agree, there would be a national strike against South Africa becoming a republic. After he and his colleagues were acquitted in the treason trial, Mandela went underground and began planning a national strike for 29th, 30th and 31st of March the same year. In the face of massive mobilization of state security, the strike was called off early. In June 1961, he asked to lead the armed struggle and help to establish Umkhonto weSizwe as Spear of the Nation, which was launched on 16th December 1961 with a series of explosions. On 11th January 1962, using the adopted name David Mosemai, Mandela secretly left South Africa. He traveled around Africa and visited England to gain support for the armed struggle. He received military training in Morocco and Ethiopia and returned to South Africa in July 1962. He was arrested in a police roadblock outside Howick on 5th August while returning from KwaZulu-Natal, where he had briefed ANC President Chief Albert Luthuli about his trip. He was charged with leaving the county without a permit and inciting workers to strike. He was convicted and sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, which he began serving at the Pretoria local prison. On 27th May 1963, he was transferred to Robben Island and returned to Pretoria on 12th June. Within a month, police raided Lilliesleaf, a secret hideout in Rivonia, Johannesburg, used by ANC Communist Party activists, and several of his comrades were arrested. These were his words: "I have fought against white denomination and I have fought against black denomination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve, but if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." On 12th June 1964, Mandela and 7 others accused Walter Sisulu, Ahmed Kathrada, Govan Mbeki, Raymond Mhalaba, Dennis Goldenberg, Moseledi, and Mlangeni were convicted and the next day were sentenced to life. Mandela's mother died in 1968 and his eldest son Zembi in 1969. He was not allowed to attend their funerals. On 31st March 1982, Mandela was transferred to policeman prison in Cape Town. Kathrada joined them in October. When he returned to the prison in November 1985 after prostate surgery, Mandela was held alone. Justice Minister Kobi Costi visited him in hospital. Later, Mandela initiated talks about an ultimate meeting between the apartheid government and the ANC. On 12th August 1988, he was taken to hospital where he was diagnosed with the tuberculosis. After a mere then 3 months in 2 hospitals, he was transferred on 7th December 1982 to a house of Victor Vesta prison near Paarl, where he spent his last 14 months of imprisonment. He was released from its gates on Sunday 11th February 1990, 9 days after the unbanning of the ANC and the PAC and nearly 4 months after the release of his remaining Rivonia comrades. Throughout his imprisonment, he had rejected at least 3 conditions offers of release. Mandela immersed himself in official talks to end white minority rule, and in 1991 he was elected ANC president to replace his ailing friend Oliver Tambo. In 1993, he and President F.W. de Klerk jointly won the Nobel Peace Prize, and on 27th April he voted for the first time in his life. On 10th May 1994, he he was inaugurated as South Africa's first democratically elected president. In his 80th birthday in 1988, he married Gracia Machel, his third wife. True to his powers, Mandela stepped down in 1999 after one term as president. He continued to work with the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund he set up in 1995 and established the Mandela Rhodes Foundation. In April 2007, his grandson Madla Mandela was installed ahead of the Mvezo Traditional Council at a ceremony at the Mvezo Great Place. Nelson Mandela never wavered in his devotion to democracy, equality and learning. Despite terrible provocation, he never answered racism with racism. His life is an inspiration to all who were oppressed and deprived, to all who were opposed oppression and deprivation. Mandela died at his home in Johannesburg on 5th December 2013. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share and comment. I'm Francis Okanga.